"You're being selfish," my mother said, pouring herself another glass of wine. "It's just money. Your brother needs a fresh start." I stared at the bank statement in my hand. It was supposed to show the $35,000 my grandfather had left me for law school. I had been planning this for years. I had the acceptance letter to my dream school on the table. All I needed was the tuition deposit. But the balance on the paper didn't say $35,000. It read $14.52. They hadn't just borrowed it. They had drained it, and they didn't use it for a medical emergency. They didn't use it to save the house from foreclosure. They used it to pay off my brother's gambling debts and buy him a brand new Ford F-150 because he needed a reliable vehicle for work. My brother, Tyler, didn't have a job. He hadn't had a job in 4 years. "That was my trust fund," I said, my voice shaking. "Grandpa left that specifically for my tuition. You didn't have the right to touch it." My father didn't even look up from the TV. He just changed the channel. "We are a family. We help each other. Tyler got into a bit of trouble and we handled it. You can take out student loans. You're the smart one. You'll figure it out." I looked out the window. Tyler was sitting on the patio, revving the engine of his new truck, smiling like he had won the lottery. He saw me looking. He didn't look guilty. He didn't mouth, "I'm sorry." He just gave me a thumbs up. That was the moment something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It was quiet. It was the sound of a bridge burning. I didn't yell. I didn't throw a fit. I realized that crying would only give them the satisfaction of calling me dramatic. "Okay," I said, putting the paper down. "I'll figure it out." I went upstairs and packed my bags. 2 suitcases. That was it. I walked past them in the living room. "Where are you going?" my mother asked, annoyed that I was blocking the TV. "To figure it out," I said. I took out the maximum amount of student loans. I ended up at a state school instead of my dream university. I worked 2 jobs waiting tables while studying for the CPA exam. I remember one Christmas Eve working a double shift at a diner, feet bleeding, watching customers eat with their families. I checked Instagram on my break. There was a photo of my parents and Tyler in Cancun. The caption read, "Family first, so blessed." They were drinking margaritas on my tuition money. I turned my phone off. I didn't go home for Thanksgiving. I didn't go home for Christmas. When they called, I sent them straight to voicemail. When they sent birthday cards, usually without cash, I threw them in the trash unopened. For 5 years, I was a ghost. I graduated at the top of my class. I got hired by a Big 4 accounting firm. I didn't become a lawyer. I found something that fit my personality better. I specialized in forensic auditing. My job was simple. I hunted down people who tried to hide money. I found fraud. I found tax evasion. I found the secrets people thought they had buried deep in ledgers and spreadsheets. And I was very, very good at it. I assumed I was done with my parents. I assumed I would never speak to them again. But narcissists don't let you go that easily, especially not when they run out of money. 5 years after I walked out the door, my phone rang. It was my father. I stared at the ID. I almost let it ring, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hey, son," he said, his voice dripping with fake warmth. It sounded forced, like he was reading from a script. "We miss you. Look, we're in a bit of a bind with the IRS. A misunderstanding, really. But since you're a big-shot accountant now, maybe you could come over for dinner. Take a look at the books." I could hear the desperation under the arrogance. I almost told him to rot. But then I thought about that empty bank account. I thought about Tyler's truck. I thought about the margaritas in Cancun. "Sure, Dad," I said, checking my schedule. "I'd love to help." I pulled up to the house in my own car. It was a modest sedan, but it was paid for. The driveway told the whole story. Tyler's truck was gone, probably repossessed years ago. The lawn was overgrown, the paint was peeling, the house looked tired. My parents looked tired. But they still had that arrogance, that belief that the world owed them something. "It's ridiculous," my father said, tossing a pile of crinkled receipts onto the kitchen table. He poured himself a drink, even though it was 11 a.m. "The IRS claims we owe $12,000 in back taxes. It's an error. Their computer is broken. We just need you to sign off on an amended return saying it's a mistake." I sat down and opened the shoebox of documents. The smell of stale smoke and desperation wafted out. "I can't just sign it, Dad. That's a felony. I have to audit the records first, to make sure it's airtight." He clapped me on the shoulder, relieved he didn't have to do the work. "That's my boy. Work your magic. Make it go away." I worked my magic all right. I spent the next 3 weekends at their house. While I was digging through 10 years of financial records, Tyler came into the kitchen. He looked rough. He was eating cereal out of the box. "Hey, little bro," he smirked. "Fixing the money? Make sure you find enough for me to get a new ride. The last one was a lemon." He didn't even remember that he bought that truck with my future. He just expected me to fix his life again. "I'm looking for everything, Tyler," I said without looking up. "Don't worry." What I found wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a crime scene. My father owned a small contracting business. For the last decade, the book showed he had been paying Tyler a salary of $60,000 a year as a senior consultant. Tyler couldn't even spell consultant. He had never worked a day in his life. That was tax fraud. But it got worse. I found receipts for business expenses that were clearly personal. A trip to Disney World listed as a client conference. A new kitchen renovation listed as office supplies. And the kicker? They hadn't declared a single cent of income from a rental property they inherited from my grandmother 3 years ago. They were collecting cash rent and putting it straight into their pockets. They didn't owe $12,000. I ran the numbers 3 times just to be sure. If the IRS found the truth, they owed closer to $150,000, plus penalties, plus interest, plus potential jail time for filing false returns. I sat there in the kitchen, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. I had 2 choices. Choice A, I could cook the books. I could use my skills to hide their mess, bury the evidence, construct a lie to save them from ruin. Choice B, I could do my job. I looked at the photos on the fridge. There were dozens of Tyler. There wasn't a single photo of me. I remembered the student loans I was still paying off. I remembered the nights I went hungry. I finished the audit on a Tuesday. "Well," my mother asked, walking in, "did you fix it?" "I fixed it," I said, putting the files in my briefcase. "I prepared the correct forms." I didn't give the forms to them. I drove straight to the post office. I filed Form 211 with the Internal Revenue Service. That's the application for award for original information. In plain English, it's the whistleblower form. If you report tax fraud over a certain amount, the IRS gives you a percentage of the money they recover, usually between 15 and 30%. I didn't just tip them off. I submitted the entire file. Every fake receipt, every illegal payment to Tyler, the undeclared rental income. I handed the IRS a slam-dunk case on a silver platter. 3 months later, the audit notice arrived. This wasn't a letter asking for a correction. This was a notification of a full criminal investigation. Their assets were frozen immediately. The business accounts were seized. My father called me screaming. I could hear my mother crying in the background. "What did you do? They know everything. They have copies of receipts I haven't seen in 5 years. They know about Tyler's salary." "I know," I said calmly. "I told them." There was a long silence on the line, the kind of silence where the world stops turning. "Why?" he whispered. "You're our family." "Because I'm an accountant, Dad. I balance the books. You took $35,000 from me. By my calculations, with the reward money I'm getting, we're finally even." They lost the house, they lost the business, they had to declare bankruptcy. They are currently living in a one-bedroom apartment on the bad side of town. Tyler is sleeping on their couch. Last week, I got a letter from the U.S. Treasury. My whistleblower reward was approved. The check was $42,000. I think I'm going to buy a new truck, a nice one, and I might even drive it past their apartment just once.